Hi everyone, welcome back to another moment. No voiceovers, no dialogues, just silence, choices, and the weight behind them. Today's story begins not with conflict, but with things left unsaid, a broken trust, an apology that came too late, and a goodbye that never really happened. Watch closely. It's not what they say, it's what they don't. Morning broke gently over the small yard where tall areca palms swayed without sound. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, resting softly on Tu Tieu's shoulder. She swept the yard in silence, each stroke of the broom slow and deliberate, ritualistic, but weighed with something unspoken. Chickens clucked as they scattered from the coop, and doves landed softly on the tiled roof. Their wings beat against the stillness, echoing like memories trying to be heard. Tu Tieu looked up. Her gaze drifted, unintentionally, toward a quiet corner once filled with laughter. Uri's corner, his drawings, his presence. A single feather floated down into her hand. She froze. Her eyes reddened, the sting of something not quite grief, more like the ache of remembrance. A breeze passed through the palms, and with it came flashes of Uri. The warmth in his glance, the way his shoulder brushed hers in passing, that short, careless laugh. She pressed her lips together, then placed the feather gently on the steps. A small offering to a time that could no longer be reclaimed. She moved to the garden, pulling wild greens from the soil. Light streamed through the leaves, tracing her face with a cold, lonely beam. She didn't look up. She worked in silence. Inside her, something vast and unnamed was growing. It wasn't sorrow. It wasn't even regret. It was the echo of something unfinished, something that still pulsed in the quiet, and the quiet was deafening. So still it made her realize, sometimes the most haunting thing isn't absence. It's what lingers after. The phone rang in the old kitchen, slicing through the morning stillness like a blade. Tu Tieu was rinsing greens. Her hands were wet, water dripping as she reached for the phone. The voice on the other end was neutral, almost cold. No emotion, just words. Uri, accident, hospital. Her eyes widened. Her heartbeat stumbled, then surged, wild and erratic, as if something inside her cracked open. She didn't speak, didn't ask for more. Just stood frozen for a second, then slowly ended the call. The air shifted, heavy, even though the sun still streamed golden through the slatted window. She didn't move at first. Fingers still gripped the phone. At her feet, the greens slipped from her hands, scattering. Her gaze turned distant, fixed on a space that no longer felt familiar. As if blinking might erase the voice, the name, the sudden flood of everything she had tried so hard to bury. Tu Tieu turned, walked toward the back room. She opened the wardrobe and took out an old coat. Her movements were slow, measured, like someone preparing to face a past they never agreed to revisit. No tears, no sighs. Just the kind of silence that drowns out sound. She stopped at the doorway. The sunlight barely reached her face now. Her expression was unreadable, caught in a half-shadow. Stillness. And then, without a word, she stepped out the door. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly, bathed in pale fluorescent light that clung to each of Tu Tieu's footsteps like a cold mist. The scent of antiseptic lingered in the air. The quiet roll of a gurney echoed nearby. It all felt slow, like time itself had thinned to a whisper. With every step, something heavy stirred within her. Unasked questions, unsaid words. The door to the room was slightly ajar. Through the glass, Yuri lay motionless. His face was pale, delicate beneath the sterile white blanket. An IV dripped steadily beside him, each drop like a ticking clock in the silence between them. Tu Tieu didn't enter. She stood just a step away, eyes locked on Uri. Not from fear, but because every emotion she had buried for years was quietly, painfully clawing its way back. Every line of his face felt familiar to the point of dread. Yet her memory remained fractured, like a broken reel of film, flickering, incomplete. A nurse passed. Their eyes met for a brief second. She looked away. Her hand reached for the door handle, paused, almost opened, then slowly let go. Something inside her was still wrestling, not with Yuri, but with herself, with what she wasn't ready to admit or remember. The hallway lights remained unchanged, but within her something had shifted. Just slightly, quietly off balance. Afternoon sunlight slipped through the window blinds, casting slanted beams across the hospital bed. The light caught every drifting speck of dust in the still room. Nothing moved, except the slow, steady drip of the IV, echoing like a distant heartbeat. Tu Tieu remained where she was, unmoving as if time itself had frozen. Then, a faint motion. Uri's fingers twitched, curling slightly as if grasping at a memory buried deep. His eyelids fluttered. Slowly, he opened his eyes. For a few seconds, they were clouded, then sharpened, fixing right on where Tu Tieu stood. In that instant, the world held its breath. Uri said nothing. He simply looked. No anger, no blame. Just an unwavering gaze that struck Tu Tieu like a silent storm. Because in that gaze, something shattered. Maybe it was hope left too long unanswered. Maybe it was the question that had never been asked. Tu Tieu bit her lip. Her hands clenched at her sides. She wanted to speak, but her throat tightened. She wanted to move, but her feet were rooted. Then, a long beep, the heart monitor. She flinched, not from fear, but because her own heart had just skipped a beat. That gaze, it was too real, too close, too unbearable. After their silent gaze dissolved into stillness, Uri turned his head away, but his eyes continued to scan the room. No longer dazed, no longer weak. His stare now was alert, sharp, and quietly suspicious. He didn't speak. He simply sat up, slowly, each motion careful, precise, like a predator gauging his cage. His gaze moved across the table, the medicine tray, the nightstand, each corner seeming to hold invisible truths. Tu Tieu remained still, sensing the shift in him, but unable to step forward. Even without looking at her, his presence forced her back, wordless and heavy. Uri reached toward the drawer. A slip of paper fell out. He picked it up, gave it a glance. No reaction. But when he folded it, something in his eyes darkened. Like a small piece of something much larger had just clicked into place. He moved to the window, parted the curtain. Outside, the dusk was motionless, pale and cold. The room suddenly felt smaller, like the walls had crept closer. The air thickened with something nameless and suffocating. Tu Tieu lowered her gaze. Her fingers brushed the table's edge, trembling slightly. She knew this silence wasn't peace. It was the stillness before a hidden storm breaks loose. Uri stepped out of the room. No one stopped him. The house held its breath in silence. He walked slowly, each footstep echoing old memories. Every corner, every object, now seemed cloaked in different meanings, as if they had witnessed something he hadn't. He paused at the bottom of the stairs. A small scratch on the railing, a faint smear along the wall. His eyes locked onto what once seemed meaningless. Then slowly he crouched, as if sensing something hidden beneath the surface. A storage room door left slightly ajar. Uri pushed it open. Inside was dim, thick with dust. In the corner, a white cloth draped over an old wooden crate. He stepped forward, pulled it away. A torn shirt, a crumpled paper, a knotted string with dry, dark stains. He froze. His eyes weren't angry anymore, just stunned, then hollow. Behind him, Tu Tieu had appeared. No one knew when. She didn't speak, just stood there, hands clenched. No explanation was given. None was needed. The air between them felt too heavy to breathe. Uri turned his head, and in his eyes now, there was no trust, no confusion. Only one question remained. Who is it I've really been living with? The next morning, the sky was overcast. A fine drizzle veiled the old metal roof. Uri sat quietly on the porch, back straight, eyes lost in the white curtain of rain. Tu Tieu stood inside, just beyond the door. She watched him from a distance, her gaze heavy with things left unsaid. Between them stretched a silence no one dared to cross. Uri asked nothing, blamed no one. But in that silence, everything seemed to crumble. He simply sat there, as if speaking would shatter what little still remained. Tu Tieu stepped closer, quietly. She set down a glass of water beside him. Simple. No pressure, no plea. Just a quiet hope that he wouldn't turn away. Not yet. Uri looked at the glass. He didn't touch it. Then, slowly, he stood. Each step away from the porch was measured. Not hurried, but as though each one carried a weight he hadn't named. Tu Tieu didn't reach for him. She just stood there. One walked away. One stayed. Each holding their own silence, like a farewell that didn't need to be spoken aloud. Just before he disappeared into the rain, Uri paused for a single heartbeat. He didn't turn around, but his shoulders trembled, barely. And then, he was gone.